And welcome back. Episode 27 of the Black Psychologist Podcast. I am one half of your humble and gracious host and clinician here for all your listening and viewing pleasures, Dr. Kyle Osborne. He is I and I am him. And you guys know by now that I'm never ever here by myself. This guy, let me tell you about this guy. He's not cocky, he's confident. So when you say he's the best, it's a compliment. Dr. Jason Coleman. How are you, good sir?
I'm good, bro. What's going on, man?
None, man. Here we are at the top of a week. Just made it through. We're getting through it. We halfway through this September month. It's moving fast, man. But here we are.
Yeah, listen, man. Feeling good today. It was a busy week, but a good one. I can only see the top of your shirt, but I see you got on one of my favorite, most legendary groups.
Hold on a second. You know what that is. I'm just.
There you go.
Yeah.
One of the most legendary music groups.
All day.
That's right. But yeah, man. It was a good week. Just a busy day, but of course, we just want to thank everybody for watching, taking the time to listen or watch. We appreciate it. So definitely, continue. We're gonna try to keep putting the content out, but definitely humbled and thankful for people that listen.
Absolutely. Episode 27, we wouldn't be here without you guys being able to tune in, without y'all watching and subscribing. So just as you said, Jay, continue to watch, comment, subscribe. Any questions, comments, or statements, feedback you want from us about anything, please hit us up at the Black Psychologist Podcast at gmail.com. We love to hear back from you guys. We love to answer questions. So do that. And before we get started, also wanted to point out, I wanted to do this and it slipped my mind during our last episode, but we lost somebody earlier this month. Great talent. Actor, dancer, choreographer, Michael K. Williams. A lot of people know him from The Wire, from his amazing character Omar. But I definitely wanted to, keep his family and his thoughts and prayers. We lost him earlier in the month. And I know that, Jay, we've talked about this, off camera and such, just about, when that happened, how we talked about it. And so definitely thoughts and prayers to Omar, the greatest character in television history, one of the top ones. It was really cool that I think last night at the Ravens Kansas City game, they actually did the Ravens. It was their home game, so they actually played the whistle. You know how on the show before he would get ready to do his thing, he would play the whistle. So they did that before the Ravens came out, as a salute to him and to honor him. So so that was pretty dope. So absolutely, great actor going way too soon, great talent. So I wanted to make sure we got that out. Yeah. So
one of the greatest shows, man.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm smiling because in my mind I'm thinking about when he was standing outside of the building. He was like, "You better throw that bag over the wall for I huff and I puff." Listen, crazy series, man. Like, listen, The Wire is one of those, like The Sopranos. You know what I mean? Just legendary. This, just can't be replaced. And even outside of that role, there was a lot of things, people don't hear about that he was trying to do to kind of help the culture and the community. So, obviously 40 something years old, gone too soon. So, definitely a good thing. You shouted that out.
Absolutely. All right. So let's go on and get into it. So Jay, let me ask you a question. When you received your first dose of the COVID vaccine, did you feel any sense of relief?
Definitely.
Okay. All right. Well, you wouldn't be alone in that. All right. So an article that recently came across the desk actually showed that it suggests that there's a common feeling of that relief for many people after they received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. So there was a study that was recently done consisting of 8,003 adults. These participants were surveyed at a regular intervals between March 10th of last year and March 31st of 2021 of this year. And they were required to answer questions about the vaccine status, about their, whether they were vaccinated or not. what their levels of depression, anxiety were done, and this was done using a 4-item patient health questionnaire. So what researchers found through the study was that after they received those that received the first dose of the vaccine between December of last year and March of this year experienced a 4% reduction in their risk of being mildly depressed. They also found that there was a 15% reduction in the risk of them being severely depressed. Now, on the other hand, those that had not received the vaccine began to feel even more anxious and depressed. So, based off these findings and results and what you read in the article, what would you take away from this, Jeff?
I mean, listen, I understand the findings that they confirmed. This is what I would have hypothesized would have happened from the beginning, right? And the reason why I say that is because, we have something that's a tragedy, that's a tragic event. It's affecting hundreds of thousands of people. So even more than that, when we talk about like families, people feel like it's out of their control. They're experiencing anxiety, right? And what does taking the vaccine do, right? You're doing something about it. So it's going to give you a feeling of empowerment, right? Now, when I mean taking the vaccine, now let's be honest. Let's be before I even expand on my point. I do believe the vaccine works and all that, but I'm just talking about the theory behind taking it, right? You're doing something about a situation that's out of your control, right? So even if those people were taking a place of you know what I mean, like a sugar pill or something that didn't work, it was still, I think, my belief that they would still get that feeling, right? Because you're doing something about something that's out of your control. So like me personally, when I got the vaccine, like I felt like I was Iron Man or something, like Robert Downey putting on the suit, man. But that's what I mean, like in terms of that feeling of empowerment, like in addition to all the other things we're doing, right, like hand washing, masking, all of those things, it kind of like adds to that feeling. So long story short, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised with the results. Mm-hmm. How'd you feel about it?
I mean, me personally, when I received the the first dose of the vaccine, it was more the hope, definitely with I'm taking some more of that control, because I feel like for the longest throughout this whole past year, it's been a lack of control.
Right.
Like a lot of decisions and things have been done. There's been a lot of uncertainty. It's almost been like for the majority of all last year, and then even now, we're like going along, we're reacting, right? We're reacting to whatever these protocols that are being passed down, any new information. And so, it was like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to, one, I can make the decision whether I'm going to get the vaccine or not. Two, it's like, okay, this with hopes of this, it's like, okay, I can do something to protect myself, right? Reduce the risk of being infected, or if you are infected, lowering that, the severity of, your symptoms if you are infected with disease. So it was more just kind of gaining that control and then hoping that, there will be some sense of normalcy going forward.
Right.
All right. Hopefully this is some of the steps now, albeit baby steps, but I was hoping that this would be steps for us getting back towards some sense of normalcy. Like I've accepted the fact or terms that I don't think we're ever going to get back to what it was pre-COVID. I feel like this is always going to be, present to some extent. And I feel like, all the changes and adjustments and things that, we as a society have had to make, I don't think we're ever going to get back to what it used to be. However, we're gaining and hopefully being able to obtain some sense of normalcy. I felt like the vaccine was going to be like, this was, some of that, that trajectory going towards that. So that was what I thought. But yeah, I wasn't surprised about the, the results, because, even though the numbers are like, 4%, 15%, that's still a decent amount, even with just 8,000 people that were utilized in the study. So, it's like, you're not surprised. It's like, okay, I think a lot of folks were also in hope that, hey, this is the back for us getting back on track and hopefully beating this thing.
Right. And listen, like, I didn't really think about that part, but I agree with you totally in terms of the vaccine and it getting approved, gave us hope for in terms of moving back towards normalcy. However, we can kind of say that's going to look like. I personally think we're going to be seeing people wearing masks and, in public, and probably like people who are working in businesses like that. Like when we look at servers and people like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think some industries may never go back to not wearing masks again, right? And certain things we just may not see again. Like I wonder, I have no knowledge of this, but I wonder how Las Vegas looks in terms of like buffets and all of these things. Like, in terms of pre-pandemic, how they look now, right? Because what I'm sure about is that people probably don't have the same level of comfort as with somebody else reaching over their mashed potatoes. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a little bit. Things have changed. Like, you know what I'm saying? But you know what was interesting, and I wanted to kind of ask you about was the other side of it, right? They were talking about the people who didn't take the vaccine, they felt increased anxiety, right? So I was just wondering, what did you think about it? Because I was thinking about, okay, so you got people that take the vaccine, me included, you feel a sense of hope, you feel a little bit more in control. Then you have other people that don't take it for whatever reason, right? So it's fair to assume, without taking into account the reason they didn't take it, that at the very least they feel the same amount of anxiety that they felt before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now the research is saying that after not taking it, they started feeling worse. So my question to you is why, right? And what I was thinking about is, I'm like, well, if you feel out of control, right, then things continue to get worse around you, right? The numbers inevitably keep going up, right? Jobs are drying up, all of these things. As human beings, not saying that we need every question answered, right? But what else is out there, right? Because a lot of these people, and now I'm just speculating, a lot of these people have rejected the experts, right? So what does that leave you? Because usually these are the people that bring us that comfort with the numbers, right? With the safety behaviors. So if you've rejected the experts, you've rejected the vaccine, then the only thing that's really left out there is your own expertise, which is probably not there, and conspiracy theories. Mm-hmm. So I'm not really, and conspiracy theories are not there to provide us with answers, So in that, I can understand why anxiety would increase for some of those people. You know what I mean?
So I was thinking, kind of along those lines, but then the other side, the opposite end of the spectrum, and hoping or having hope for those that were unvaccinated, this would elicit or prompt some hope in them. Because like you said, there's so much misinformation out there, right? They're rejecting the experts, and, it's a lot of confirmation bias when they see, things on social media, and they're like, oh, you see this guy, the dude fell out after he got the first vaccination, he got the first vaccine, and this guy, and you're still hearing like all these other different outlandish stories of these side effects and things of that nature. And so what I was hoping, because a lot of these tend to be like really extreme, or they're like anecdotal, right? It's like, oh, I knew somebody that got it and his leg fell off, right? It's like really outlandish and just extreme. So I was hoping that as people saw others like in their neighborhood or people that they knew getting vaccinated, and then you would see them okay, right? Like I see Anthony getting vaccinated, who I see at the barbershop every weekend, and then I see him, he got vaccinated, I see him the following weekend, he's fine. Right. He's okay. He's still alive, right? No missing limbs, no, none of that stuff. And so I was hoping that when people would see that, it would be like, oh, well, you know what? It's it's not like all of these other different rumors, all these wild side effects that people said that they hear of, and all the conspiracy theories. And I was hoping that when you see other folks get vaccinated and they actually turned out to be okay and healthy, that this would maybe prompt them to at least be more open to it. Right? Because like you said, if they're not going to go based off of science, they're not going to go based off the experts. All right, well, your own expertise is, you got your own eyes, right? You have conversations with people, your family members, and if you see that they got it and they're okay, what else do you now? What are you falling on now?
Yeah. I
So
mean,
that's what I was hoping.
yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I know we didn't talk about this before, but I just got a question. So what do you think about, I don't even know what my answer to this is, but what do you think like other like celebrities' responsibilities are? Because I'm thinking now in terms of like the Nicki Minaj thing, in terms of her comments, and then I'm thinking about Joe Rogan talking about horse medicine. You know what I mean? So what is their responsibility? Because you're talking about people with huge platforms, right? Who in certain cases are spreading what the majority of people, especially in the scientific world, would say is just conspiracy theories, right? Mm-hmm. But people are always going to come back to, okay, my platform, my opinion, right? Now, obviously again, I've gotten to the point in my personal life and otherwise that it's not even to be condescending, but it's like, you can't argue about something that you know with somebody who thinks they know. You understand what I'm saying? And that it sounds messed up, but people apply it to every other situation in their lives, especially with their children, right? Our children think they know a lot, but if we know something, you know what I'm saying? If they tell you that, whatever. I don't even gonna come up with a crazy example, but you know what I mean,
right? Yeah, no.
So what do you think about that? Is there any responsibility? Where's the line? Because you got Joe Rogan. I think he has the biggest podcast in America, right? You got Nicki Minaj. She has millions of followers, right? Both of these people, a lot of people would look at and be like, listen, these are intelligent people. They're certainly talented. They've certainly made a lot of money. They've been successful at the top of their business. So a lot of people would tell you that they're experts or not geniuses in their field, right? But then they do and say this, right? So what you think? What do you think?
I hold them to the same accountability that I hold anybody, because you have the right to do with your platform, like you mentioned, whatever you would like. I would hold them to the same accountability and responsibility you and I or anyone that has a large following on TikTok, right? Make sure like you have the right to believe whatever you want. My whole thing that I subscribe to is just make sure you're making an informed decision, or whatever you're going to be like advocating, have it be, based off of something. Like unfortunately, like with Nicki Minaj's, I think hers was anecdotal. Hers was like her a relative or somebody of hers, I think was, had something happen to their testes or something outrageous, right? But it wasn't like, oh, I saw this article that came out, it was somebody that she knew or family member, and then she went off and made this claim. Now I don't know about, I remember what Joe Rogan says. I don't know if his was based off of some type of research or paperwork literature. I don't know. However, listen, I hold them to the same people or to the same, accountability, because whether you got 1,000,000 people or you got 1,000 people, you never know who, like, what you're saying, whether it be on TikTok, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be on IG, who that may influence, right? Because you might have somebody that's on the side of the fence who's just like, oh, well, and it make that, oh, well, if Nikki said it, or if Dr. Kyle said it, then it could sway that person either way. Now they're based off, or they're susceptible to that because they haven't gone off and done their own information. So you can say whatever you want, just have it be some type of literature based. Now we know that literature and stats can be swayed either way, right? You can sway it whichever way you want to get your point across to, or support whatever your theory is. But I think when you get up here and you start saying anecdotal stuff, like that's the thing where it's just like, I can't roll with that.
You know what I'm gonna say? And at this point, I'm not talking about Nicki Minaj or Joe Rogan specifically, but I would probably group them in a group of a lot of celebrities I've heard speak out on the vaccine in the last year, right?
Right.
The fear that I have is, I think the danger is that it's becoming like the Make America Great Again hats, right? Like speaking out against the vaccine, right? Like it's becoming just like the popular thing to do, right? To create, controversy, get people to watch a video, whatever it is. Whether you're making remarks at a concert or to a newspaper or whatever. My fear is like it's becoming like that, because if we're being honest, like, again, everybody has eyes, everybody, we have freedom in America, so everybody can read, right? But what are the odds that all of the people that we're talking about even know where to access the appropriate research that may be coming from like places like the National Institutes of Health, where you can really make an informed decision on your own? Right. I mean, what are the odds of that? If we're being honest, I can't be one of these people. That there's people that want to stand around all day and play the what if game. But people would do it. But they could do it. And it's like, what are the odds, bro? And the odds are very low, right? Because the problem is most people listen to the experts, right? Especially people that know a whole lot. Because people who know a whole lot know how little they know. And that's the problem, right? People who know a whole lot, have a lot of information, know how little they know, even when they're an expert, right? So that's why we listen to the experts, So I just fear that we're getting into a space where it's just become the popular thing to do, or say.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's one of those charged topics, and it definitely, unfortunately, it's turned into the either or, like, what side do you fall on, right? It can't just be, you have an opinion about it. It's either you're pro or you're anti. And, even from the very beginning, from when we started, was make an informed decision. Like, we're not going to get up here and say, you need to do this, I do it, so you need to do it. It's like, nah, make an informed decision. And you're right. A lot of people are not they're going to kind of see who they identify with. And unfortunately, roll with that, which is why I hold them to the same in account. You have a platform and you're gonna speak on something like this. Nah, I hold you accountable. Like, seriously, I don't care who you are, because there are a lot of people that are gonna sway, like you said, are gonna put on that red hat or whatever and follow your lead, and that could be really dangerous.
But see, and this is where I think things get crossed with some people, right? And I'm not talking about you. Make an informed decision is true because we live in America, right? But make an informed decision and what's in the best interest of public health do not have to be on the same page, right? And people, I think, fundamentally misunderstand that, especially when it comes to something like vaccines, right? Mm-hmm. They would understand it, right? If I made if I made the decision to walk into all the preschools in America and start smoking Newports, everybody would agree with the public health policy to put me out and arrest me, right? Why would they say that? Of course, why can you do it? Because you don't want to make the kids sick, right? But in terms of the vaccine, when it comes to public health policy, people act like that's violating them, right? So you do have a right to make an informed decision, but that's why we see, as a result of your informed decision, now you can't come in this restaurant. Now you can't work here. Now you can't come in here, right? Which is public health policy,
right?
Right, and that's where I think ruffles a couple of feathers, because people want to make their own decision and then continue to have the freedom to do what they want to do, and those two things just don't, they just don't equate all the time, bro.
It's not matching up. So. Yeah, it's something, man, because it feels like every other week you got some type of celebrity or somebody that has a large platform and they go off and say something, and it just kind of charges everything back up.
Yep. It's not going away though. I'm sure we'll revisit it again.
Of course. All right. Speaking of revisiting things, as we know, last week we remember the events of September 11th, and of course, our thoughts and prayers go out with, any of the victims' families, our first responders, the firefighters, the police officers. And so it's 20 years, right? It's been 20 years since the horrific September 11 attacks. And, something that I thought about in an interesting article that came across our way was how the evolution of trauma and PTSD changed from that, right? You know, a lot of times they talk about so many different aspects of it, but a lot of what we know about trauma, you know, changed that day and with the aftermath. So that was something that, you know, I thought would be a really, you know, interesting topic and something to kind of reflect upon because, you know, there's been innovations in as far as the treatment with trauma and PTSD, and then, you know, there's been an increase in understanding. So, you know, and also just how overall how different providers, you know, look and view PTSD and trauma. So, you know, what were some of the things that stood out for you or some takeaways for you as you read through this article?
I mean, listen, of course, September 11th like changed the way a lot of people kind of viewed trauma in a bunch of ways, right? One, in terms of like, obviously this isn't the first time that mental health has been brought to the forefront, right? In terms of like a situation of need. But I think this helped in terms of public understanding, to increase the public understanding. Not saying it was beneficial in any way, of course, but of just trauma in general, right? And the reason why I say that is because so many people on so many layers were affected, right? So it just helped people gain like a fundamental understanding of like what PTSD was, what vicarious trauma, things like that are, and just how, trauma doesn't just really stop with the individual, right? It kind of has a rippling effect throughout that person's family, their children, their interactions, all of those things. And the other thing that I think was very important is just how it kind of also shined a light on the multiple things that could cause somebody to feel the impact of trauma, right? And again, I mean, we're saying that in the midst of a pandemic that we're probably going to look back on similarly to the way we look back on September 11th, right? In terms of the amount of people that died, and the impact on families. So I just think it kind of, just helped bring a light to that, right? Because when we talk about PTSD, like a lot of times, people don't understand, like there's a range of things that can cause PTSD, whether it's, a childhood abuse or whether it's a situation like September 11th, or a range of things in between, right? Whether it's a sexual assault or, robbery, these type of things. Mm-hmm. So I think that's, good in terms of aiding understanding. And then, also the public knowledge is important because a lot of the symptoms of trauma, unfortunately, like we see people's behavioral reactions, but we don't see the nightmares, right? We don't see the intrusive thoughts, right? We don't see the flashbacks. And, that could be difficult for people to put into words for a lot of different reasons. So, if anything, I think, that kind of pushing PTSD into the spotlight, I think it benefited, in a lot of ways in terms of that, in terms of the public understanding of trauma.
Yeah, I like what you said, and to kind of highlight like the vicarious trauma, right? Because similar to, COVID-19, right? September 11th had like this potent effect like of media exposure, and it had like this impact on people psychologically and physically, right, over time, because you saw the events happening, right? It was a communal event because it occurred on television, and unfortunately the victims were everyday people, right? They were engaged in everyday activities. They were going to work, they were, going about in their, getting on a flight. And so that it really just it was collective trauma, right? Because we met them, and like you said, all these various forms of trauma came to the forefront, from these events. And so it gave more information about it. One, about vulnerability, because even as a nation we were very vulnerable, after these attacks, right? Learning, recovering. And then also I like you said, how it expanded across the whole different spectrums of trauma, right? It really, if you look at it, it was kind of like a revolution, if you, in kind of storms, like when I think about it, because you also look at the aspect of it it got people thinking about like self-care, right? And so you're not only just about, you're talking about the victims, or in the survivors, but for the people that treat them. Now, I mean, this was in 2001. I was a senior in high school when this took place. So, I could be wrong, but I don't believe that there was a lot of emphasis put on like on self-care as far as for the providers, right? For the first responders. I don't know if there was as much conversation talking about like, burnout and, taking care of oneself and resiliency until this happened, right? Until you started to see the after effects of the workers that were down there at ground zero, that were helping out, that were experiencing some of, like you said, that vicarious trauma, even with the cleanup efforts. So I feel
Right.
like that started that conversation through that. And then it also, if you look at it, like it with more research and more information, it also helped us kind of see like what treatments didn't work. I don't know if you remember what was that thing called? Critical incident stress debriefing. I don't know if you
Okay.
remember that, right? So that was
Mhm.
involving like it was literally what it is. Like it was like debriefing after someone experienced a traumatic event. Like they made that person like recall the events like immediately. So
Okay.
yeah,
How,
right.
how, does that,
So
how does that work out?
right, it didn't work out at all, right? It was terrible. And so like it showed the treatments that for trauma victims like did more harm than good. Because now, like you said, think about it. Like we're looking at it and reflecting on it from a point of like what we know about trauma and some of the best, treatment interventions. But imagine taking someone that just experienced a traumatic event, like you said, whether it was like sexual assault, whether you were in battle, whatever the situations may be,
Mhm.
and you're asking that person to tell you all about it while they're still like in a hyper vigilant emotional state, but you're asking them to recall everything, and that was a type of treatment.
Yeah.
So with that, with more information and like you said, more spotlight, more emphasis placed on trauma, now they were able to say, okay, you know what, this treatment is no good, this isn't working. Now we can
I
actually do
mean,
some research and get some more evidence based. Not to say that that wasn't evidence based, but we definitely found out that that didn't come through, that didn't work. And so now you're ushering in more effective treatments, due to this tragedy. I mean, due to this tragedy, but now you're also helping people, not just these survivors, but you're also helping other folks, that experience trauma, later on. So I felt like that was, like you said, is no good, but there were some benefits that came out of like just the increase in research and awareness on trauma.
yeah, I mean, I guess the last thing I'll say is, number one, I'm surprised at that treatment you're talking about. Like that's crazy.
That was the real thing, bro.
But it kind of leads into my next point, because what I was gonna say is, um, especially like I don't know if this came about, largely because of 9/11, but I've seen a lot of attention given in the last decade to like, what you would, I don't want to say non-traditional treatments, but non-talk therapy treatments, right? And I think that to talk about that is very important, especially when we talk about trauma, right? And I mean like whether it's like dance, movement therapy, or yoga, different things. Because listen, the science is there, and those of us who have took the time to do the research as psychologists and practitioners, like we know, like trauma is stored in the body with a lot of our patients. You know what I'm saying? And that's why when they come in our office, they don't want to talk about their traumatic experiences. A lot of them either A, have no words for it, or B, they can't come up with the words, because a lot of their trauma is trapped in different areas of their body, right? So I think, within the last decade, I think it's been very more beneficial for the patients than anything else that we've kind of started to embrace a lot more non-talk therapies, right? Because I think whether it be CBT, whether it be other types of talk therapy, I think they can be beneficial, definitely beneficial to trauma, because we're all different in terms of how we process things, right? So what's beneficial to me Some people may benefit from talk therapy, CBT, exposure. Somebody it might be dance movement therapy, right? But I think it's important that we kind of shine the light and kind of put the emphasis on a lot of these therapies that kind of focus more, on trauma that's trapped in the body, because a lot of our patients, especially the younger ones, they have challenges accessing their, those memories, or they have challenges accessing the words to talk about them.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really important. And I'm happy you mentioned that, for the reason that not everyone experiences trauma the same, right? It's not always the same impact that it has on someone. So, when you that was the importance of studying trauma and realizing, like you said, there are so many different modalities that can be helpful. Like you mentioned, the dance and, music therapy, all these other different ones. It's like, okay, well, this is going to fit for this particular person, right? Because this is the way that they interpreted the trauma, right? This is, it was so much more information that they were able to, have this spectrum of various treatments of the severity of how this person might be experiencing, whether they were experiencing, the long-term effects or they weren't. Like, I felt like that was also, like you just said, so helpful, and not just putting everybody in one box, because there are varying degrees of what someone taking, how they're interpreting it and experiencing it. So, yeah, I mean, it's great, along with that, psychological first aid, all these other different interventions and modalities that came to the forefront because of this. So, I'm excited to see, what new interventions are going to be ushered in through the next 10 years, because like as you know, and I know, like it's always evolving, right? There's always more information. There's always more research coming through. So, yeah, it's like you said, if out of a tragedy, you're able to get more informative, more research-based, more effective care for those, then, it's I don't want to call it a win, but again, it's beneficial, and it is helpful for the folks coming down the line.
Yeah, believe it at that. I think that's what I agree.
All right, so we mentioned social media earlier, right? So let's get in. So TikTok, right? TikTok just recently unveiled a new mental health research on its platform to address the well-being of all of its 65.9 million viewers. All right, so what they did in this app, or this new tool that they're introducing, it addresses, it includes like in-app guides that address like body image topics, signs of struggling, and more. So what TikTok has done is that they provide this app, or this option that altering, the search results of, say, like self-harm, right? Or terms as suicide. So instead of seeing more harmful clips that'll pop up promoting suicide or even committing the act, what'll happen is that the individuals will be met with like support and treatment resources. And what else did it say? So, and additionally, so if someone were to enter a search phrase that might be like alarming to like TikTok, like offering like scary makeup as an example, then the content will be blurred out, and they'll ask users to opt in to see the search results. So now a lot of this is coming off the heels of there was a Wall Street Journal that came out, a story that alleged that Facebook had publicly downplayed Instagram's effects on teens' mental health, even though Facebook's own research and studies repeatedly like revealed serious negative impacts that confirm the issue. So that's what prompted TikTok to, put this endeavor in. So they also released a statement. They said, "We care deeply about our community, and we have always looked for new ways in which we can nurture their well-being." So what are your thoughts about this, Jeff?
I haven't quite decided how I feel about it fully yet. I see some positives. One, I think the first kind of thing I was thinking about when I was reading it is when they were talking about if like you search for suicide, it will kind of direct you to resources in your area, like local resources, right? I think that's excellent. I think that's something that should probably be standard across social media platforms, right? Mm-hmm. Just because I just think it just could benefit. I don't see how it could hurt anybody. So I think that's great. again, signs of struggling in psychoeducation about eating disorders, body disorders. I mean, that's all good. I would like to know a little bit more about how they're going to kind of make it digestible and marketable so that people actually want to go read it, because most people don't hop on the TikTok to read about, body, dysmorphia or eating disorders. So how they're going to package that stuff is a little questionable, but at least they're making an effort. I'm kind of going back and forth about whether this is a responsible move or whether it's just hypocritical, right? Because we know that whether it be Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, I'm not saying they're solely responsible for young people and older people, having kind of increase in their vulnerability when it comes to their image, body image, all these things, but they're right in the middle of it. When we used to say the media and we used to say magazines and movies and television. Now it's Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, right? Because some people will tell you, I think we could have a good argument as to whether they're more influential than the radio, the television, and film. You know what I'm saying? I think it's a good discussion to have. But I don't know if they're being hypocritical or responsible, because I know they're doing damage control. I'll tell you that. So like I said, it's a good move to put the stuff up there about the suicide, eating disorders. But I'm wondering if it's kind of like, you go into a liquor store, you buy a 6-pack of beer, on your way out, you look up and what's on the wall of the liquor store, right? A picture of a guy or a girl having the time of their life on the beach, drinking all this beer, you know what I mean? Buckets of it. And then down in the corner, they say, don't drink and drive. Yeah. Drink responsibly.
Drink responsibly.
So it's like, I'm wondering if that's TikTok's version of saying, drink responsibly. You know what I'm saying? Because, what else are they going to do? They're not going to limit kids' time on their own platform. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what China just did, right? With the online gaming.
Right.
So what do you think? Is it hypocritical, responsible? How you feel about it?
I'm on the same lines as where it's a great idea, right? And I think this is pretty much all a media platform can do, because if you do any more than that, sometimes you really have to be careful, because like you said, you fall into that, well, the allowing people to rights and things of that nature, right? I feel like if you want to be careful when you move into the censorship lane, because then if you move too far into that area, then that could be an issue. You can see people having issues with that. And then also, we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier before we got on, is that you can monetize things, right? So I'm also hoping that this endeavor doesn't turn into a situation where you're monetizing things that are really intended to be like helpful resources, right? So I think you really have to be careful. So if we're looking at it in total, like you said, there are pros and cons of all of this. I mean, for most social media things, but even if we're talking about specifically, say, with TikTok, like TikTok is great for the reason that, it's important to talk about suicide. It's important to talk about anxiety, depression, and not have that content like removed. Like, I think an initiative that they're trying to do will continue to push away some of those old age kind of fear-based conversations about, say, suicide. I mean, because that's one of the things that when kids, or not just kids, but anybody gets on and you talk about suicide or an issue comes up, the manner sometimes, because TikTok has a certain type of humor, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have a certain type of the way they present things, and like, it's important to keep that conversations going, where maybe before people might have been afraid to talk about suicide, right? This generation they're way more forthcoming. They're way more, outgoing and upfront with talking about certain topics that maybe a generation ago people may have seen like that was taboo, or we're going to keep that like in the dark. So, and a lot of people have, especially young kids, have said that they've learned about certain things on social media as it goes for, or relates to mental health, right? They've said that they've learned about depression, anxiety, attention problems, eating disorders, whatever the situation may be on TikTok. And I'm not going to sit here and and be a hypocrite, because and I know that I've posted some content on TikTok as far as ways to cope with depression, trauma, all these other different things.
Well, hold on,
right?
hold on. I think you're selling yourself short, because listen, you a viral star on TikTok.
I'm not
So
violent, man. I do a couple dance moves on the thing,
You're a viral star on TikTok.
I do a couple dance moves. I slide, anybody interested, Dr. Kyle on TikTok, check me out.
Yeah. Promote yourself, man.
But yeah, like, and so like I along with myself, and I've seen, other therapists, other clinicians, get on TikTok, and they put some informative videos. So I like that that's fat, because most of them are accurate, most of them are informative, and they're helpful. So if you have a group of kids that like, hey, I don't know anything about mental health or about depression, I've heard about it, and then they run into a video from myself or another therapist or somebody that is kind of telling them, hey, if you feel like this could be helpful, this could be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I think also where you have to kind of toe the line is that my concern has always been people or kids using TikTok like to diagnose or treat themselves, because that's not what it's for. So that's why I'm hoping that, that this initiative is going to put them in an area where it's like, hey, if this, resonates with you, okay, these are the resources, right? This is where you can get help, because fortunately, you are going to have some people that are going to diagnose themselves and be like, oh, well, this is me, that's me, that's this. And so, and like you said, that's where sometimes, I think TikTok, it's really important for them to kind of make clear that what they're offering is not a substitute for treatment, right? It's not mental health care. I'm happy that they're going to start putting some, the resources in place for that, because that's where I feel like this could kind of get out of control. Like you said, it's like, oh, we're having so much fun, blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah. Drink responsibly, or if you have problems, call this number. Like, no, there needs to be like something that takes you right there and provides some form of treatment, not form of treatment, but resources where you can, get some help or get the things that you need. So that's kind of been my view on this, where like, put some things in place where if people are clicking on this content, then they're also able to get those resources. They're also able to get the help, because it's not a substitute for treatment. It's not don't go in there and diagnose yourself. Like, I think they need to be more clear and kind of putting that out there and or like spreading that information.
I agree, man. I can't add nothing to that, man. I agree with you, man. Like I said, I'm gonna see what they do with it, and kind of how these changes impact, the platform as a whole. But I'm still not sold. I don't know if it's hypocritical or it's responsible yet. I got to think about it.
I think the initiative or the goal is to be responsible. I do feel like, again, this is also being prompted because of what Facebook, because they just flat out downplayed and denied, like, there's no negative impact on kids. Like, nah.
That's why I said I don't know yet if the goal is to be responsible or if they're just trying to get out ahead of what they know is coming.
Probably a little bit of both. Now I will say, like, if you are serious about this, even if it's prompted off of, like you said, damage control and trying to get ahead of things, there are some things that you can put in place. Like, if someone is looking for services, it shouldn't be like multiple buttons or multiple like areas you have to go through, because that serves as a barrier. Like, if I'm in need and I gotta click through here, and this is gonna take me to a link, and this is gonna take me to a link. Like, no, it needs to just be like one button, right? So as far as making the inner surface, like the interface more user friendly, as far as that goes, that to me, all right, they're taking this more serious, even though it might have been just prompted off of them just trying to like save themselves or damage. So we'll see, man. We'll see how it goes.
Yep, definitely.
All right. So rounding things off. So one local college is making a change in the mental health, my friend. All right. So in Tallahassee, Florida, a recent study came out that 39% of students experienced significant mental health issues during their college experience. And 67% of young adults between the ages of 18 and 24 don't seek treatment for anxiety or depression. So what Tallahassee Community College is, they're rolling out a new app called WellTrack. So this app is designed to let students learn skills and get through feelings of anxiety and depression. And in addition, it helps them find in-person counseling so they can better serve their students virtually. And it's also available for faculty and staff, which I thought was pretty cool. So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts about this, Jeff?
I think this is, to me, without kind of seeing it implemented, I give them an A+, right? For intent and in terms of implementation, right? And what I mean by that is, to me, this seems like it's been done in good faith, right? In terms of, I wouldn't be surprised, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is a school whose environment is really trying to support positive mental health, right? And you know that, right, because of who they made it available to. Everybody, right? Number one, I think it's a good thing because you're allowing people to, remain anonymous, removing stigma, allowing people to kind of download something on their phone, and you're meeting them where they're at. So some people aren't going to be ready to come to treatment. They just want to learn skills on their phone, right? Mm-hmm. Some people don't want to learn skills, or, they know some skills and they just want to read and get some psychoeducation. Some people want to reach out to a therapist. You know how many people just want to, how many people, and I'm not like, at least twice a month, at least 3 people text me or DM me and just ask me for therapy resources, which I appreciate, Mm-hmm. But a lot of them, say to me, can you help me out because I don't know nobody else. Now I'm happy to help them, but it's just barriers between people actually doing it. There's therapists all over the place on Google. I'm not saying it because I want them to use Google. I'm humbled that they came to me, but I'm just saying it's a difficult experience. As you know. So I think that's good, man. It's free, it's accessible, and it's removing stigma, right? And they kind of emphasize that it's in addition to in-person counseling, not a substitute. So I can't complain. I think it should be available on every college campus, including the one I'm on,
Yeah, I like what the vice president of their student affairs mentioned in the article, is that we don't want mental health to be a barrier for students and for them to be able to achieve their academic success while studying here. And something I think that doesn't get paid enough attention to are just some of the intangibles. And, it's stressful being in school, especially now given, with COVID, but even prior to that, like it's stressful being in school, in college. Like, and honestly, I'm going to expand that because it doesn't matter what level of schooling you're on, whether you're getting your associates, whether you're getting your bachelor's, whether you're getting your master's, whether you're getting your doctorate, school is stressful. It's an investment. Like it's something in addition to, your work life, your family life, money, all these other different additional stressors. And so now you're also choosing to, work on yourself. You're choosing to improve yourself, work on whatever academic goals and professional goals you have. And this can be very stressful, right? It can prompt depression, it can prompt anxiety. And I'm happy that this school has decided to get, this initiative early on and provide this resource to their students. And right. I mean, we talked about this also before we came on, is that even for faculty and professors, like, this is a challenge, right? This is also something in addition to your family life, in addition to other stressors that you have. And, this provides challenges, this provides stress. So these are some of the things that I don't think, unfortunately, the general public kind of thinks about when, they think about students, when they think about school or college or whatever, level of academia, because this is a whole new world. Like this is, we're not too far removed from being and sitting in the class from ourselves. Like it's difficult. It's very stressful. And, I totally agree with you. I think all schools should, get in on this endeavor and have something similar to it if you're not going to have, something like Well Track itself, because this is an additional resource that kids need, right?
Right.
If your kid isn't like, if you're not doing well, mentally, as we've talked about in previous episodes and just kind of with our clients and our patients, then there's no way that this student's going to be able to do well in your classroom.
Right. I mean, listen, parents understand this very clearly, like, sometimes just because of the ambition, not because they don't understand, we got to sometimes get teachers to understand it again, right? Like, if certain things, if a kid isn't doing well, they can't learn, right? So we tell the teachers all the time, if the kid didn't eat, or if their parents are at home fighting in the morning, it's going to be a little difficult for him to focus on the math. You know what I mean? Respectfully, right? So it's the same kind of concept here. Like, if you don't take care of your mental health, your relationship's not going to be okay, right? Work's not going to be okay. Everything else is going to be that much more challenging, because internally that, you're struggling. So I agree. And again, like talking to some of the students this semester, a lot of the students that I'm working with, like you asked them about, like I was asking them about their stressors, man. It's some of the things that you wouldn't think, their stress is their stress. So I'm not being dismissive about it, whatever they identify as important to them. But it might not necessarily be what you think, right? A lot of the students identify different things. For one person, it might be having to learn at home last semester. And for somebody else, it might be sitting there in the classroom with a mask. For somebody else, it might be their child was home with them for the past year and now they're not, so and for somebody else, it might be financial, about, just books and grades or whatever. But like whatever it is, if they say, in this article, they said 67% of young adults between 18 and 24 do not seek treatment for anxiety or depression. Like, that's scary to me, man. And I'm not trying to overdiagnose, people, because we know some people, when they have symptoms, some things will dissipate on their own. But we want to encourage people, especially who have significant symptoms, to always reach out.
Totally. I mean, you have to think about it, even if we're looking at it from the administrative or business aspect of school. If you're an institution, you want your students to be in the best, condition if possible,
Yeah.
especially mentally, because there are so many different reasons, and a lot of them you just mentioned, why people don't finish, when they're going for whatever degree.
Right.
Happens, right? All these other different stressors get in the way. And you don't have those resources to kind of help you manage that. You don't have that support, because not everybody comes from where they have a whole bunch of family and friends that are able to help them with their kids, able to help them with finances, they're able to help them or motivate them, right? So if you don't have, that luxury or that support system, it's in the best interest, I even think, just for all these, schools, or to provide this resource to them, because you want your kids to finish. I mean, you want, your numbers to go up. You want to continue to gain tuition. You want all these other different things that lend itself to your students doing well, right? Of course, for their health, but it's also for a whole number of other different reasons why you want students to come through and do well in your program and graduate and so on and so forth. So, Tallahassee, man, they're getting it right. So I'm hoping, again, like when we do articles and we discuss these, that this creates more awareness in other different cities, other different states, so they can, follow suit, because, this is helpful. I'm happy that, again, we're in a digital world, so things, a lot of apps are popping up, and this would have been great while, we were in undergrad and we were in, getting our magic, it's so many different things, because now we have like our breathing apps. We have all these different apps that are helpful now for us. Like, they were there while we were, getting our doctorate and things. But like, I can only imagine like how helpful this would have been like in undergrad while we were in the beginning of our master's program. So, so yeah, special acknowledgement and shout out to Tallahassee Community College. You guys are are doing it. You guys are on the right track. I like where you guys are thinking.
Definitely, man.
All right, Jay, anything we missed or anything else we should highlight before we get out of here?
No, I think we're good. Just want to, again, thank everybody for listening. Please share the videos if you got a chance to, and we're going to keep the content coming.
Absolutely. So, hit that like button and subscribe, guys. Jay, without further ado, my friend, always a pleasure. Do it again next week, my friend.
All right, bro. Listen, man, I'm gonna meet you at the in Philly for the Out of the Darkness joint. You doing it, right?
Oh yeah. Thank you for reminding me. That's right. It is still continuing to be September, National Suicide Prevention Month. Yeah, absolutely. I have a team that I'm rolling with. It's down at the Art Museum, October 2nd, I believe. Whatever that first Saturday is in October. So yeah. Team Knockout Suicide, KOC Suicide. So yeah, we on there. I'm down there. I'm doing fundraising, and yeah, we're out there, man. So anybody that's free, it should be a good day. Hopefully the weather holds up, but it's gonna be down at the Art Museum. Come roll with us, man. We're gonna be out there, creating awareness for suicide prevention. It's gonna be a good one. I did it 2 years ago. It was a great turnout. I mean, it was amazing. They had some pretty good speakers out there. The weather was great. So yeah, come on down, Jay. We in there, baby. Let's do it. Yeah, I mean,
right, no
burn some calories, get the steps in,
I'm gonna see you down there, man.
All right, cool, bro. I'll talk to you.
All right, later.
All right.